Good afternoon, everybody, in Ukraine and in the Netherlands. Welcome to this webinar, Stiyka Ukraina, in which the horticultural perspectives from Ukrainian side are highlighted. You succeeded to get through the login procedure of this webinar, and we as organizers apologize that for those who don't speak English had to press the Russian language to follow this webinar. The reason is that our Zoom version does not have the option to choose Ukrainian language, but you will hear now Ukrainian translation. Because of this translation, I and the speakers have to keep a pause in between the sentences. This webinar will be recorded in English and in Ukrainian language, and you can find it back on the website stiyka.ukraine.com. Today is May 17, 2023, and we are in the 448th day of the Russian invasion, in which they wanted to take the whole Ukraine. In the first months after the invasion, we all thought and hoped that the war would be over soon. Now we hope that it will end this year. But since the economy in Ukraine has got down with 30%, and the hryvnia lost about 25% of its value, with a group of Dutch companies, we decided that we should not wait any longer, but to do something. To let you know in Ukraine that we don't forget about you. And together we can lobby better than all of us alone, and therefore we founded Stiyka Ukraina, which is a platform or a cluster where you can point your ideas and needs. And we need to hear from you what your challenges are that you face and where you see opportunities according to your circumstances to be able to continue your business. Because your products are needed by the people. 90% of the Ukraine area is not occupied, and as we say, the business must go on. Or to say, the show must go on. And that means that production must go on and export must go on. Exports to international markets with international changing requirements. And therefore you in Ukraine need to remain updated with novelties, innovations, new conditions and market trends. And since a man cannot leave Ukraine, we have to bring this information to you in Ukraine. And that is why we try to do with Stiyka Ukraina to give you a platform. Through these webinars, we can give you a voice in the Netherlands and we can learn from you what your specific needs are. But also we are preparing a demonstration field near Kiev, where we can show new crops, varieties, technologies, and give training so you can be kept updated and integrate what you think is right in your business. Till now, 13 companies from the horticultural sector are supporting Stiyka Ukraina, for which we are very grateful. Vegetable seed companies, plant nurseries, and technology companies. Every company can join. There is no competition, but a joint goal to get Ukraine through this war. We hope that more Dutch companies will join, and we ask Ukrainian companies to guide the direction which we should go. Today we have 4 speakers who we asked to describe the actual situation in Ukraine from different angles. First, Reinoud Nuiten from the Dutch Agricultural Council of the Netherlands Embassy in Kiev. Then Alexander Yareshenko, Vice Director of Scientific Work at the Horticultural Institute in Kiev. Followed by Sergei Netudikata from the blueberry farm Artberry. Thirdly, Victor Gordy from Uman Teplitsa will tell about his challenges in tomato production under glass. And last but not least, Ivo Kyumyurdiev from Rijkswaan Ukraine. He will tell about the open field vegetables production, which was concentrated in the south of Ukraine and now has to be replaced partly to other areas. When you listeners have questions or remarks, please write it in the chat. And when we have time, we will answer questions after every presentation. You can always call us or write to our email address. Then we start now with the speakers. Dear Reinoud, welcome. I understand that you are in Ukraine right now. Could you tell something about what the Dutch Embassy and in particular the Agricultural Council is doing? And are you safe over there?
Thank you, Frederike. Yes, I am in Ukraine indeed. I just come from a road trip today. So you can travel in Ukraine. And yeah, how life is here, it's a bit schizophrenic, if I may say it like this. In Kiev city, you have a lot of terraces. Spring is there, but at the same time, there are air alerts and you have to go to the shelter every night almost at this moment. So it's yeah, strange how people seem to find a balance in the life here. But let me go to the text I prepared. Because I wanted to tell you something about the plans of the Dutch government together with the private sector of the Netherlands in the horticulture sector for the coming period. First of all, I'm very happy to see you all here. I'm happy that you took the time and that you have interest in seeing what this can all lead to. So that's a very good start. Today, we will focus on the challenges facing the horticulture sector in Ukraine as a consequence of the ongoing full-scale Russian invasion and discuss how we can address these specific needs with Dutch support. As a result of this Russian invasion in February last year, the production and logistic chain for vegetables and fruits have suffered significant damage. Despite these challenges, production continues as much as possible. However, it is clear that Ukraine needs support to rebuild and restructure the sector in a better, more efficient and sustainable manner. Ukraine has traditionally been an important player in horticulture, alongside large-scale crop production. In the past, Ukraine exported many of its products to former Soviet countries. But after gaining independence in 1991, it also started to focus on Europe. Due to political events in 2013 and 2014 and subsequent trade restrictions with Russia, Ukraine had to shift its focus entirely to the rest of the world. Since then, the Ukrainian vegetable and fruit sector have undergone significant developments. The growth of the sector has not gone unnoticed by Dutch businesses, resulting in a steady increase in the number of Dutch companies active in Ukraine. Over the years, the Dutch have built a strong reputation in the cultivation of flowers, fruits, berries, indoor and outdoor vegetables and trees. Furthermore, we have expertise in nursery products and starting materials. Obviously, the Russian invasion in Ukraine has had a major impact on the Ukrainian horticulture sector. Many companies in the south have been largely destroyed by the war, and the vegetable production in areas in Kherson and Zaporizhia are still largely occupied. And since the war is ongoing, the duration of the conflict is uncertain. Rebuilding in the occupied areas is not currently feasible. Nevertheless, there is a great need in Ukraine to explore what is already possible in terms of reconstruction. There is a strong demand for knowledge and collaboration to further develop and rebuild the sector. There is interest in improving mechanization, logistics, the cold chain, certification, and starting materials. Dutch companies have the knowledge and experience to meet these interests. For this reason, the Netherlands Embassy in Ukraine has been in discussion with the Dutch horticulture sector since last summer in order to see how to mobilize our support activities. Together with colleagues at the Netherlands Enterprise Agency, RVO, and Frederike Vogel from Rosetta Agro, who is, as you now know, the initiator of the Stiyka Ukraina project, we have been developing a public-private cooperation initiative which is aimed at bringing together a consortium of Dutch horticulture companies that is able to address the needs of Ukraine. At this moment, the consortium counts already 13 Dutch companies. Together with the consortium members and our Ukrainian partners, we want to explore the possibilities of rebuilding the horticulture sector in Ukraine in a more sustainable, better, and more future-proof way, under the motto, Build Back Better. In this phase of early recovery, we are considering what the sector will look like after the war and how we can contribute to the country's economic reconstruction. We believe that the public-private cooperation initiative can further assist Ukraine. Dutch companies are capable of providing practical and hands-on support for short-term challenges while contributing to the long-term development of the sector. We realize that scaling up this technology can be a challenge given the larger scale of Ukrainian horticulture companies compared with Dutch companies. Nevertheless, Dutch knowledge and technology are well adaptable to the horticulture sector, thanks in part to the European Union being the main market. The Netherlands has an excellent starting position as Ukraine, who is now candidate for the European Union membership, must meet European quality standards, where Dutch companies can provide support. In conclusion, I would like to thank the organizers from Stiyka Ukraina for organizing this well-timed webinar, and I wish the participants a day of learning and interactivity. I hope that this event will be the beginning of a successful collaboration to build further on the ties that we already have between the Netherlands and Ukraine, and that the initiative will make a significant contribution to the recovery of the Ukrainian horticulture sector. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Reinoud. I don't see any questions, so that gives us a nice opportunity to go to the next speaker. And that's Alexander Yarishenko. He is Deputy Director of Scientific Work of the Horticultural Institute in Kiev. Alexander, welcome to our webinar. How are you, and how is the situation in your institute in Kiev? We have 10 minutes and a lot of things to tell, because you are going to tell something about the vegetable production and also about the fruit production in Ukraine. The floor is yours.
Можу сказати, так, чуєте мене добре?
Can you hear me now well? Yes?
Yes.
Ситуація в нашому інституті
The situation in our institute is stable, and in these circumstances, it is a positive result. But now we are talking about general situation in the sector of horticulture of Ukraine. Therefore, let me start with materials which I have prepared for you. I will switch on the screen share. I will put on my presentation. So let's move on. First of all, I would like to thank Frederic and our Dutch partners and colleagues for this great opportunity, for this great initiative which they have started. And I hope this initiative will be really supportive instrument to provide support to Ukrainian sector. Ukraine, just shortly about history, I called it Ukraine is the horticulture country and fight for the freedom. So before the USSR time, during Soviet period and from the beginning of the period of independence, Ukraine has been actively developing the sector of horticulture. This is due to the unique soil and climate conditions, as well as workability and the availability of sufficiently high qualifications of people who were engaged in it. People who were eager and found opportunities to recover and develop after the wars, after famines, numerous repressions from the regime, and closure to the civilized world. Therefore, I am convinced now that we will pass this test. Yes, it's a bloody and devastating test. We will pass with dignity, with the support of our friends and partners. This support will make it faster, better, with greater prospects, and mostly, everyone will benefit from it. What is the recent situation of the horticulture under the war? It should be highlighted here several key aspects that have a decisive influence on these directions in the agricultural sector of Ukraine. First, a very significant increase of the cost of grown products, primarily due to the difficult and in some cases dangerous logistics of means of production. I'm talking of fuel, fertilizers, plant protection, other materials and equipment, and the increase in the cost of these means, especially fertilizers. According to various estimates, this growth is estimated from 20-30 to even 60% compared to the pre-war period. It is necessary to add the factor of devaluation of national currency, hryvnia. Although from the point of view of export opportunities, there is also a positive factor here. Also, producer has already faced the cost associated with ensuring operation during permanent lockdowns. In particular, they purchase electric generators, even though there is still a risk for operators of particularly energy-intensive enterprises, like, for example, those who engage with freezing. Second, cancellation of seasonal crediting or installment payments for fertilizers and plant protection products, which were provided by suppliers to producers on the conditions like to pay after harvest. Currently, it's not available. It's only 100% prepayment. Thirdly, a quickly growing shortage of labor, in particular men, due to mobilization into Ukrainian army and the constant migration of a large amount of refugees between the regions of Ukraine and abroad, which is especially seen in Western regions. As a result, there is a shorter or total absence in companies such necessary workers of so-called male specialties, like tractor drivers, operators of other machines, hydraulic engineers, and so on. The fourth, occupation and military actions in the regions where the great share of vegetables and strawberry were traditionally grown in open and closed grounds. I'm talking of the south of Ukraine, the Kherson, Zaporizhia region. This pushed producers in other regions to expand the area and the vegetable crops, and also to expand the assortment or even start new directions of vegetable growing in where it was normally not done before. And the fifth, shortage of products of certified fruit and berry nurseries. I mean the planting materials for specific most demanded positions like raspberries, currants, partially strawberries, sweet and sour cherries. Because large nurseries are either now occupied, like Melitopol, or in the war zone, like Bakhmut, or very near to the combat zones. With a vegetable transplant, the situation is very similar, maybe a little bit better, but basically it's the same. And another thing, about the last 2 points. We objectively realize that even after the deoccupation and the end of the hostilities in the mentioned regions, producers will not be able to return to the fields quickly. This has to do with the need of demining and cleaning these fields from the dangerous explosives, as it was mentioned by previous speaker. So this will take years. Support and prospects. Considering that the capacities for post-harvest processing and storage at Ukrainian producers of vegetable, fruits and berries was not good even in the pre-war time. This is the most acute problem in agricultural sector. A large number of available capacities is, in the best case, and I mean in brackets, is located in occupied territories. And in the worst case scenario, it is destroyed or been robbed by the enemies. Good example I can tell, calling so well-known trademarks as Chumak in Kakhovka, Arctica in Kharkiv region, and many other different regions. Here in the photo, you can see the company of our colleague, from the trademark Arctica. This company is located 5 kilometers from Kharkiv. You can see there is nothing left of it. Accordingly, new manufacturers, or new agricultural producers who are just starting or relocated and starting new production of vegetables, they do not have such capacities at all. And as a result, there is an unstable supply of products to the market, especially off the season. Insufficient quality, the jumps of the prices, and the fact that the impossibility of working for export. So this is the very important directions where your support and help will be very much needed in the means of providing the food security for internal market of Ukraine and external for export. And it is for now and for the future. This can be implemented in the form of state or government programs under which, for example, equipment can be purchased, can be bought from the Dutch manufacturers under conditions of installment payments, or on a loan or credit at affordable interest rates, or in any other way which will make it affordable for Ukrainian producers. I want to bring to you the main consolidated message from our producers, of who I know and to who I spoke in person. They say, we do not need from you a free support or free help or grants. Please give us instruments or tools for availability of what we need on the mutual beneficial terms. Please hear it from us. I also want to add that the Institute of Horticulture in Kyiv, where I work and do what I represent, is ready to provide the extension support, like for consultancies, in the implementation of similar possible programs for our producers, as well as to become a basic enterprise under the terms of public-private partnership. We have unfinished nursery complex. The structure and equipment for it was supplied from Dutch companies as a part of the state program in 2012-2013. But unfortunately, the start of hostilities in 2014 have stopped this large-scale project. And unfortunately, this project is still suspended, and its revival is currently more than needed, and now is more than ever it is needed to recover this project. Thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to answer your questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Alexander. I don't see any questions in the chat. Yeah, thank you very much for your presentation and explaining the needs and where they are. It's shocking to see some former colleagues of us, what happened to them. It's also very good that you make clear that it is not just because it's always easier to give than to receive. I would say that, of course, it would be very good to have a kind of loan system or so that people can build up their companies again who are affected by this war. Maybe one of the other panelists have a question to Alexander. And not, then you had a very clear story, Alexander. Thank you very much. I like to go to the next speaker, and that is Sergei Netodikata from the blueberry plantation Artberry. It's located at in Nebelitsa on the highway E40 from Kiev to Zhytomyr. And I'm telling this because that is where we have our demo plot, where we are sowing at this moment vegetables and but also planting new berry varieties, and also fruits are standing there. Hello, Sergey. How are you? How are you doing? Can you tell us something about how you got through the past year with your farm activities? And what are your challenges?
Greetings to everybody. My name is Sergey. I'm from Artberry Trademark. I'm owner of this company. Last years, I found that there is no problem that you cannot find solution to get out of it. That was not easy years. First of all, let me introduce our history. We started our trial in 2015. With blueberry and sweet cherries, and then next year, 2016, we planted 90 hectares of blueberries, and then next year, 2017, we have planted 40 hectares of sweet cherries. We are happy that we made a long time friendship cooperation with Holland Rosetta, and really our years prove that we achieved confidence and trust in our relationships. So I cannot tell how much we value our cooperation. So as you see, we are exactly about maybe a couple of years more, year or two, to reach our full production, both for blueberries and for sweet cherries. The last year the war started, I can divide for two consequences. First are direct, and then the second block is are indirect consequences. So direct consequences were that we get the for whole months shelling, and for months our Ukrainian artillery troops were in our orchard, because we are really in Makarov district, and this district suffered a lot. It was really a problem to maintain our routine work in February and March. We are happy that our team survived. Nobody was killed, nobody was wounded. There are many houses and homes of our workers who had damaged or some level or destroyed at all, and we need to find solution how to find living housing for them, or how to repair, to help them to restore their houses. Also, we had, as long as we have been shelled for a long time, Do you hear me? Because it looks like, yeah.
Да, чудово чутно тебе, Сережа.
Some
Продовжуйте.
problem. Sorry. We had a problem with our pruning team that time because half of team had to escape to become refugees. Half of team stayed with us and made all its job because they could not return to their houses, or it was insecure for them. As long as we have been shelled, we received damage in our switch cherries blocks. We are happy that we didn't receive any shelling because it was all on the perimeter of our pack house, but there were not so pictures like we have seen, for example, Arctica company in previous discussion. So we are fortunately, we are also happy that we had to clear our land, and we found also unexploded rounds, which we could evacuate and explode in some safe place in places where nobody could be damaged. We also and also direct consequences was that last year people really were afraid of our location, and they didn't want to return at all. And as for seasonal workers, they were really afraid, and they didn't want to come because it was really, as a fresh news, Makari district, nobody wanted to come. Nobody was secure with that land is clear, and there will be no second attempt from northern borders. But luckily, we have found seasonal workers, maybe not maximum, but still optimum to survive. And now this year, we have indirect consequences, I suggest, that are not easier to overcome like last year, because we are a company that was oriented for export, and our main channels are United Kingdom and Netherlands. We also export some shipments to Germany. And as you know, last month probably, we have challenged that we have to deal with unpredictable policies of our neighbors, East European countries, with European Union. Yes, we can say that there are safe. It can be safe measures, but if we put it in the same simultaneously with sanctions from Russia, we receive full embargo. Maybe for us as a fruit growers, it is not really a problem right now, but it can be in summer. So I try to monitor situation in grain, corn production, and I see how people are nervous, and they cannot decide really how to behave. Should they plant? Should they continue, or should they stop? And the main challenge for this year, I see not clear future in our trade relations with our neighbors. And this is only a western border. So northern border, eastern border are closed with war. South border is insecure also with permanent threat from Russian military. So I think, I hope that European Union will let Ukrainian companies to survive, because we have only one route. It's only to the western border. There are also challenges which are not not at the same level as this one, but still they're substantial. Maybe for smaller companies, it's a problem with financial resources. Not everyone could survive last year, and they have to find where they can borrow money to maintain their routine activities. And the third problem is probably mobilization, especially with people with occupation which can drive tractors, and especially in our region, probably it is a problem because we even today, for example, we heard about a new campaign, and I understand that our state needs more people in army who can use tanks, and they require specific skills. So these three challenges, I think, will be probably the main block. And another one, maybe it's not the small, because there is an upsides and downsides. Is the seasonal workers, the people that flew last years, they became refugees. Mostly they do not return, but there are also seasonal workers that cannot go now out of Ukraine because they are males. So it can be as plus, and it can be as minus for seasonal workers right now. So I cannot tell you that it's really a problem which is predominant. But the three problems I mentioned before are the problems. So that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Sergey. Yes, the labor, I can understand, is totally different situation as it was before with the refugees, but also people who have to go to the army. So that really has changed. So also now it would be nice if processes can be automized to get the crops from the fields and getting it to the market. And then certainly, as the Netherlands is a trading country, so we get blueberries from everywhere around the world. So we really encourage to keep open borders. So this reaction, what was in East Europe, that's really difficult for us as well. So maybe Reinoud wants to comment something on it, or let's go to the next speaker. Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Sergey. We're going to the next speaker, and let me see. Yes, that is Victor Gordy from Uman Teplica. Uman is located at the middle of the country, and between Kiev and Odessa, so 200 kilometers south from Kiev and 200 kilometers above Odessa. For the Dutch listeners, Uman Teplica is a modern Dutch greenhouse with all Dutch equipment of the highest technical standards, as far as I can judge, you know. So all kinds of different tomato varieties are produced there. And I think you also produce some strawberries and maybe cucumber. When I started my business more than 20 years ago in Ukraine, we were also working with glasshouse industry. And then I met already your father, Victor, Mr. Mikola Gordy. And he was a pioneer and very respected professional glasshouse producer in Ukraine. I believe your father is still okay. Victor, can you tell us about how you got your company through this time, and what kind of challenges are you facing now, and what do you expect for the future? The floor is yours.
Hello, colleagues. The most difficult time was when the war started. It was March month. Our company is located not far from the military warehouse, and the first days the rockets were hitting, and of course there was detonation in this military warehouse, and we are 3 kilometers away, and therefore unfortunately it was too close, and those explosions have damaged some glass house. It was more with the explosion wave, and of course we could not keep the people in the company, because you understand that in these conditions to work under the glass, it can be dangerous. We cannot allow people work on the glass during the explosions. So the first weeks there were no people inside, and that was time when we were doubting, shall we stop the company or should we go? because the plants do not grow without people, and that was the most critical period when we are the most loaded with the labor. We need a lot of people to service the greenhouse. That's why for 2 weeks we reduced the temperature inside, no lights inside. So that was kind of, I don't know, waiting and expectations. But then from the middle of March, more or less have become, we got used to it, I can say it like this. We started to recover the processes, and then from the beginning of April, supermarkets started to work in Kyiv, and we restored our work, and we are lucky to survive. So the last season more or less was a survival year. We managed. Also, there was a very difficult period in the autumn when there was a massive attack started over Ukraine for the infrastructure, for the electricity. And as everybody know already, the greenhouse complex consumes a lot of electricity. So November and further on was very difficult. It was the most difficult electricity-wise. And because in Ukraine at that moment, a lot of electric lines, a lot of transformer lines, generators have been damaged. So some lines had to be stopped. Some greenhouses we had to stop, some greenhouses we had to stop lighting inside. But because, by the way, there is the lighting of 2 types. If you could please put on the slides, Mihai, could you please start up the slides of Victor?
Yes.
Я поки буду розказувати
I
про
will continue about the situations. Yeah. If you can go to the second page, please. Here you can see that the technology of lighting inside. On the left first this is normal sodium lamps, which this technology is over 20 years in greenhouses. They are, when you compare it with the right lights on the right photo, you can see the LED lights on the right picture. It's kind of red pinkish color. So this natrium, the LED lights give the same amount of light, but consume twice as less electricity as the sodium lamps. So 2 years ago we have invested into the LED lights, and then 7 hectares have these LED lights in our greenhouse. So in November and December and January, when we had really problems with electricity in Ukraine, this technology allowed us to give the minimum needed for survival amount of light to the plants. And that's how we saved the plants and how we got some harvest. Without this technology, we would have to stop our activity, and 90% of the plants would simply die out. They would not survive without light. So these are Dutch technologies. It's Horticultural lamps. Some of them are Philips. You see, the greenhouse industry, all the greenhouses, we all have Dutch technologies in a new part of our complex. So we are very grateful to be able to cooperate and to buy these technologies. So speaking of the greenhouse industry, in principle, the companies in the central and the west of Ukraine, they all work. Nobody stopped. Only in Kalinovka the greenhouse have stopped, but it has stopped before the war. And that has to do with the high gas prices. And as far as I know, they started up again now, and they are supposed to be working now. The company in Sumy, it has been under fire, so it's not working because of the war. In Kherson, of course, the greenhouse is not working. In Kharkov, in near the Zmiyevska heat electric station, there was also a fire, and it's not working because of the attack, and all the rest are working. And the problems in the sector in general maybe are not connected so much with the war, but mainly with old technologies, outdated technologies and equipment which they have. And this is the problem connected with the that long-term loans are not available, or they need some investors who would be interested in the updating the company. There is a third slide, if you could switch over, please, Mihai. There is a financing scheme which we have used over the past 3 years. I think those who work with Holland, they know about this financing program. It's quite simple, but it's quite efficient in working. And with this scheme, you do not have to work with Ukrainian banks. You can work directly from the Dutch supplier. So Ukrainian company can directly work with Holland without Ukrainian companies. If you want to buy, I don't know, lamps or some technologies or equipment. So there's insurance company Atradius, which I understand that have some guarantees or lines from the government for the Dutch export to different countries. And at this moment, this program is not working for Ukraine. It's because of the war. But if there would be any chance to recover this program, that would be a huge leap for Ukrainian companies, because they would get an access to international market. Because 90% of the greenhouses in Ukraine, they are old style, outdated technology greenhouses. They consume a lot of heat. They have low quality products. And they have much higher labor intensity. So they need this update and renovation. And this is not possible without this system of the financing. Speaking of the Uman greenhouse complex, we are more or less stable situation now. We are even doing some. We are changing the old lamps to the natrium lamps to the LED lamps. But we only can do it in about 20% of our greenhouses because this Atradius system is not working anymore. Of course, if it would have started working, we could speed up much faster in renovations. So this is the information which I have prepared for you for the moment. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much, Victor. Yes, when we have had 2 seminars in the Netherlands about Ukraine and horticulture, and then I heard something about this Atradius program, that it would be renewed, but I'm not certain about it. So, but I hope there are some people from the government listening, and we will certainly get back to that. It's very good to hear that you could continue with your business, and indeed there is a lot of things to do for other glasshouse companies. So thank you very much for your story. And
I see some questions, Frederic, to Mr. Gordy.
Okay, very good. Yes.
The question is, how much products have you produced in 2022? And then on how many % this is more or less compared to the pre-war situation? I will repeat the same in Ukrainian.
Так. Процентів на 15 ми зменшили.
It's about 15% less our production now. quick answer.
десь на рівні 14 тисяч тонн, а по року ми,
So it's something like 14,000 tons.
17 тисяч тонн.
And normally we do about 17,000 tons.
And that is due to this lamps, yes, that you could not get.
Особливо там в
production.
грудні місяці.
Especially in
Ми-
December.
Mhm.
We reduced in December, we reduced it by 50% because without lights, we cannot produce enough.
Yeah.
Mihai, there are also some other questions in chat. If you see something important, just name it because I cannot follow it. Okay.
I see it. Yes, thank you. There are a few questions in chat, but I have only one in English. The rest is in Ukrainian, which I cannot read.
Valery, can you see it? The first question in Ukrainian?
Yeah, I'm trying to see. There are questions to Ivo, but
He did
Uh,
not have his story
yeah,
yet.
we will come to it later because he did
Yes.
not have.
And then the second in English. Are the cherries starting to bear fruit? What markets?
There is some comments which I can read in English if you want. It's in Ukrainian. Maybe it's interesting.
Yes, please go ahead. Valery.
The biggest amount of acting at this moment processing companies in Ukraine is just the big processing companies at this moment is something like just above 10. So it's only like 10 companies or a bit more. And there is new players, big players for drying, for example, vegetables in 2024. There was not even one company, not a new player, not one new player. But there was one big project which was at the final stage, but it was not finalized, what I understand yet. And then when compared to the last year, there was no significant change in planting areas. And we do not expect it to increase for some crops. For example, like watermelons, there will be some increase in the central areas. There will be some growth in onions, but will not compensate the amount of production of big companies which we lost in the south.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, there's one more question in English. If the cherry is starting to bear fruits already, for Sergey, what markets do you plan to sell to? What are the price forecasts for blueberries and cherries? We all like to know, of course. And then will there be a fall or not?
Okay, well, as the cherry is starting to bear fruit, yes, we already had them last years. For current year, we just maybe 1-2 weeks after full bloom. So I suggest if no frost, we will have cherries. Markets for sweet cherries, we suggest it's mostly domestical markets. For blueberries, okay, so it's for cherries only. Okay, for blueberries, we are going to export most volume.
There was a question, what price do you predict for blueberries? That was a question also there.
The price for blueberries domestically, it will not be very high. Will be a fall or not? I don't know. Now I see in Kyiv we have more people than we had last year. So I suggest the minimum price we had in Ukraine we already reached, but it can be also lower probably, maybe. Nobody knows. For export, I don't think it will be a fall due to hot weather in Spain. So I suggest that when we will start, all Spain blueberry stock will be depleted. So we will only have Ukraine and Poland probably, maybe a little bit of Serbia. So for European market, my hopes are stable. That's all.
Yeah, I think so too. Here it's also difficult to get labor. So prices are high. So price will maintain, I guess so as well. Okay, thank you very much. There are no more questions. Then we go to the last speaker of today. That is Ivo Kyumyurdiev. He is managing director of Rijkswaan in Ukraine. And Rijkswaan is producing vegetable seeds like Bejo and Enza. They are also in this Stiyka Ukraina cluster. Hello, Ivo. I understood that you're not Ukrainian, but you are from Bulgaria.
Yes, I'm Bulgarian. Thank you.
But
Thank
you are
you.
in daily contact with your people in Ukraine.
Even now I'm in Ukraine. Even
Oh,
currently
I
I'm in
see.
Ukraine, yes. And
Oh,
you
that's
did a great job with my family name, which is very difficult to pronounce for foreigners. First of all, thank you for the invitation to be a speaker at this very interesting webinar. And it's really very nice to see even online so many familiar faces among the speakers. Unfortunately, as it was mentioned already, I should also mention the war situation in Ukraine, just because it was the main catalyst for developing of these new vegetable growing regions in Ukraine, which I'm going to present to you a little bit later. How this happened? This happened by creating a gap between the volume of the produced vegetables and the market demand. These new regions would have developed anyway sooner or later, but not with that speed and such quantity as now due to the war. So let me share my screen if you allow me. Just a second. Do you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's not in a presentation mode.
Yes, is it now? No?
Not yet. It's in the mode of.
Okay, sorry.
Yes,
Now it's
Sorry
okay.
about this.
Excellent.
Okay. So I would start with some statistical data, which all the Ukrainian colleagues already know, but I would like to mention once again the importance of Ukraine and also to give a little bit general picture. Ukraine is the second largest country in Europe with a total area of more than 600,000 square kilometers. 71.2% out of it is agricultural land, according to 2018 data, which I have, and 4,350 square kilometers are actually irrigated land. About 10.8% of the territory of Ukraine is currently occupied. And when I'm speaking about Ukraine, of course, I'm including Crimea. Ukraine has an estimated population of 44 million, which makes it the 7th largest in population country in Europe. Unfortunately, more than 8 million people, Ukrainian people, became war refugees and are recorded across Europe, not to mention the internal migration which happened in the country due to the war. Labor force, which was mentioned already, and I'm going to mention also a little bit later, a little bit more than 20 millions, according to the data from 2021, and around 6% out of it is busy in agriculture. What actually happened? You probably know, or you don't, I don't know, that Kherson, which is not surprisingly called the vegetable capital of Ukraine, and Dniprovsky, Zaporizhia regions are the most important regions of Ukraine, or were the most important regions of Ukraine for open field vegetable production. According to our estimation, around 35% from total vegetable production in Ukraine, if we are not including potato. My presentation is not on potato, so potato is not included in everything what I mentioned. Unfortunately, these two regions are partly still occupied or very close or even at the front line, which makes the things very complicated for the growers there. So we saw a trend that some of the growers from these regions moved actually their production to central and western parts of the country. Therefore, we have in brackets, new growing areas in central and western Ukraine, which we can divide into 4 provisional categories. First, as I mentioned, these are relocated companies from the front line or occupied territories to the central and western part of the country. Second, these are already existing companies in these regions that are actually trying to increase the production of traditional vegetable crops for these specific regions. Third one, I would say, is existing or newly created, because we have such examples, companies in central and western part of the countries that are trying to grow new crops for these regions, like watermelon, melon, pepper. And fourth one, this is also a consequence of the war, of course, is small households, including displaced persons, that grow vegetables for their own needs. What are the opportunities for vegetable growing in these regions? I will try also to give some optimism here. In the total decrease in vegetable production in the so important southern and eastern regions is significantly bigger than the total decrease of consumption due to the big number of refugees and the actually decreased purchase power of the Ukrainian population due to the high inflation. So there is a big opportunity, as I can see also from the picture below. Prices are very high. I can give even an example from Transcarpathia region. Here, currently, the wholesale price of early cabbage from open field is 45-50 hryvnia per kilo, which was never happening before. The trend that some growers from the affected by the war regions are actually going to restart growing in other relatively safe regions, and the increase in production due to this relocation, or that local growers will increase growing surfaces, won't compensate fully the decrease of vegetable production in the southern and eastern regions, and won't allow reaching the same volume of products. So there is a huge niche for people who are actually willing to start grow or to increase the production of vegetables in these regions. As it was mentioned also by other speakers, even when the war is over, and I do hope that it is going to happen soon with the victory of Ukraine, at least for the next 2 or 3 years, and this is quite optimistic, there is going to be problems with production in the southern and eastern regions due to demining, due to restoring or having another irrigation system, which was completely broken. What are the challenges in the above mentioned, for the above mentioned categories in these 2 relatively new for vegetable production, or to some extent of vegetable production regions in Ukraine? First one is land availability. Second one is irrigation. This is an especially big problem in Western Ukraine. There is no fixed working capital available for most of the companies that moved from South and Eastern Ukraine. Labor, which was already mentioned several times as a problem, due to mobilization and refugee wave. It's a big problem. It was a problem in Western Ukraine even before the start of the war, when a lot of people moved to Poland and other countries, even more Western European countries. Most of the existing vegetable growing companies in Central and Western Ukraine are actually small to mid-size, which, according to our understanding, is below 50 hectares, which is actually also giving some issues when it comes to scaling up. And of course, there is a lack of knowledge in growing new crops in these regions taking into consideration the regional climate conditions. What could be done and should be done, of course, urgently, and I hope that, as Frederic mentioned also, there is going to be some EU or Dutch government institutions who are going to check what we are presenting here. Because without that, we cannot expect that the vegetables production is going to come back quickly. So financial support to companies that moved for the purchase of fixed assets and working capital in order to create stable business conditions. We speak mostly about equipment for soil cultivation, sowing, planting and harvesting, refrigerators for storage, irrigation and fertigation. Also, financial support for existing companies, as I mentioned already, usually small to mid-sized companies, to expand their business and promote, create conditions for export. Having in mind also the fact that many Ukrainians are outside the country and the country consumption and purchasing power have significantly decreased. So export could be one of the solutions. Allocations of grant for those wishing to invest in vegetable processing. Conducting of free trainings and education of growers on new technologies of growing of new crops for this region, conducting trials, something which was already mentioned that is going to be organized, and of course selecting the appropriate assortment, again considering the regional growing conditions. And to us, this is especially for the household and very small growers. This is help through charitable and non-government organization by providing free seeds, fertilizers, plant protection products and other components of cultivation for these people in order they to provide themselves with vegetable products. Conducting online or offline training on the basic elements of growing technology. And since I'm mentioning already what the EU government, business or NGOs should be doing, I also would like to mention what our company has done so far. First of all, we followed, let's say, the trend, and we also moved our warehouse and office to Western Ukraine, where I am even now, because the occupants were literally 5-7 kilometers from our office nearby Kiev. So it was quite a hectic moment for us. We try to be something like a center of excellence. We try to share knowledge about new crops, about growing technologies, about climate conditions via webinars, via personal contacts. We still keep our network of sales reps, via our company blog, by cooperation online with bloggers, by social media channels. We also assisted and continue assisting our partners in finding land and establishing connections with local authorities in Central and Western Ukraine in order to restart the vegetable production. We also, of course, last but not least, we cooperated with several times already with different NGOs for helping refugees and the people in need in different regions of Ukraine. Do you have any questions? Because before that, there was a question to me, and I actually answered in the chat, and Valerie actually translated my answer to the question.
So what was it about, or
It was
don't we need to tell?
about the processing industry, and also other new drying company which are Of course,
Oh, yeah.
we have a colleague who is more adept in the processing industry of Ukraine, but this is the general information which I have, and I think that it's relatively valid about the number of big processing companies that are still operating. Second question was again about any vegetable drying projects in Ukraine, and third one is what are the expectations for different crops, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ivo, for your presentation about what the impact is also of the occupied areas and what will it do in the other part of the Ukraine. Yes, it is maybe 10% of Ukraine, but indeed the vegetable production was really intensive in New Kakhovka and those areas in Kherson. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We are getting to the end of this webinar. We will summarize everything, and we will communicate it with our government, with other companies, and to discuss what we can do with this information, which is very important for us. And yes, yeah, I like to thank you very much again, the participants, the speakers, and I like also to thank, of course, Valerie and Mihai for all the work they did. And if there are no questions anymore, then I would say to all of you, stay safe and strong, and good luck with your business. We'll keep in touch, and you will hear from us again. Stiyka Ukraina. Дякую.
Good luck to you too.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.